Welcome to the Matt and Dale podcast, episode 2.
We just came out with some really good stuff around, I think we started with integrity, right?
Integrity, yeah.
And do you mind just talking through, you remember what we just talked about and how it was for you and initially and then what we talked through maybe?
Sure. Yeah, well, this morning, we had our team huddle, and it was based around integrity and what it means to each of us in the team. And it was really funny because a lot of people in the team were saying that, integrity means doing what you say. And the irony is, usually that's the same for me. But lately, I feel pretty burnt out because I've been sort of almost promising things to
Mm.
people and not being able to follow through with my word. So, yeah, it was interesting. It kind of, when I was hearing everyone else, I'm like, well, usually that's me as well.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I'm not aligning to that
Oh,
to that
damn, I'm out
value.
of integrity.
Yeah. But then the irony is what you brought up, Dale, was that actually that is integrity because I'm being honest. Because obviously here at Thrive, we don't really, we're an open team here, very honest and open team, and very vulnerable team. And I went, no, well, I'm just going to tell it that, yeah, I don't feel like I'm aligning to that value at the moment. But yeah, the irony was that I was being honest and open. So
And
in fact,
therefore
I
you
was
were in
aligning.
integrity. How funny. I've got I've got a question for you. You asked me in our last recording. So what brought you into counseling? Tell me a little bit about your background and what kind of brought you to this moment.
Yeah, well, once again, it's been a very long journey, just like yourself, Dale.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think going back as a child, I grew up in Alice Springs, so centre of Australia, and I was just obsessed with nature, Indigenous culture, um, really just in love with the whole landscape up there. And it was a life that I really loved, and I lived there until I think we were about 13 years old when we decided to move to the country Victoria.
Yep.
And I feel like it was then that things just completely changed for me. So I went from being, a little boy that just, I don't know, was just living a very authentic life and uh, couldn't really care about, what anyone thought, or I'm sure I did, but I was just so obsessed with everything around me at that time, and I had good friends there that were into the same things. And
What age were you around?
uh,
What are we
so
talking?
oh, so from 2 years old to about 13 or
Okay.
14,
Yep.
yeah, in Alice Springs, and then moved to country Victoria. And um, yeah, look, it was a bit of an eye opener. It was very confronting for me. So Alice Springs, if the audience is familiar with it, it's it's very remote, heavily Indigenous culture, um, and very different to Country Vic. And the first thing I noticed, I decided to sign up for the local footy team there, and
Mm.
one of the guys' nicknames was the N word. When it comes to, I don't have to probably um, describe what that word is relating to someone with darker appearance. And I thought, oh my God, like if someone was named that in Alice Springs, like, well, actually just happened, you know. Um, but that was completely okay. And that was my first sort of realization that things are a bit different down here. Yeah, so it felt like I had to change pretty quickly in
Yep.
order to fit in at my school. So I lost a lot of those, those passions. I lost a lot of the passions of nature and, um, yeah, well, being authentically me. And I was quite a sensitive, I still am, sensitive little boy as well. And uh, I had to pretty well hide that in country because it was very much a culture of men do certain things a certain way, and that's just how it is.
Yep.
So, in order to protect myself, um, yeah, I felt like I had to hide all those parts and
Get to harden up, sort of thing.
had to completely harden up. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
mm.
And I learned that the hard way. Yeah, so look, I wasn't really enjoying school. I just wasn't really fitting in too much, it felt like. And I was just finding it really difficult. And I think mainly just because my life had changed so much and I just found it really hard to adapt from living in
Mm,
central Australia to like country Victoria.
mm.
Anyway, Dad approached me and he goes, "Oh, why don't you be a builder?" And I've always looked up to my dad, and I thought, oh, and I've always wanted his approval. So
Yeah.
what, I thought, oh, well, if that's going to make you happy, then okay, I'll be a builder. So at the end of year 10, I joined a pre-apprenticeship course at TAFE,
Yep.
and yeah, that was when I already thought that, oh my God, like my sensitivities and vulnerability, it's not accepted here.
Mm,
But I didn't even know what hit me until I joined that the TAFE course, a building TAFE course, and I was the youngest there, and clearly the most sensitive and vulnerable, and it pretty well felt like I got thrown into a pack of wolves.
mm,
I've never actually thought that, but it just came to me then, is what it felt like. Oh my God, that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like all these, big guys were there, and me being the youngest vulnerable sensitive was thrown into the circle. And yeah, and I was just absolutely destroyed pretty well. So for 8 months, it was the longest 8 months of my life.
was it bullying or?
Massive bullying.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I won't go into details,
No, no, fair enough. Yep.
just for,
Absolutely.
there could be some listeners here where it's quite
Yep.
triggering. But it was, yeah, to this day, it was quite horrendous.
Mm,
But that's when, like I said, I really had to put on some body armor after that. So I ended up joining the gym and packing on probably 20 kilos of muscle. And I thought
wow.
I'm not going to be I'm not going to be beaten up ever again.
So it's like
So
almost just it was almost like uh you started putting on the armor and then you just put on more armor, and yet there's this sensitive soul
yeah, yeah.
underneath, right? Yeah, interesting. I can relate
Massively.
so much. Yeah.
I can, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So yeah. So what I felt like, things went from bad to worse with that move. And yeah, but the funny thing is, like, to this day, I'm actually thankful that I actually went through that in a weird way, because now
Yep.
I'm seeing, young people coming in, or even just adults that have been through bullying, and it's really affect them. They might have social anxieties and that sort of thing. But
Mm,
I feel like I can really relate to those people now. So
mm,
in a weird way, even though it wasn't great and it was disgusting what happened.
mm.
I feel like that was meant to happen as
Yep.
well, to put
Yep.
me in the place where I'm at thrive. Um, yeah, so it taught me a lot of things, that's for sure. So no, I feel like that was almost my um, initiation in
Mm.
a way.
Were there moments where I'm sure there was. I mean, part of your coping mechanism was to, build, gym, weights, put on kilos. Were there any other distractions or escape routes that you used during those years? Because I presume that would have been a very incongruent space, considering who you really were and who you were kind of almost trying to be.
Mm.
It's a pretty painful place, and I can relate to it, but I was just keen to find out, maybe what
Yeah,
other
well,
distractions you used.
yeah, exactly. Well, what's the best way to not getting hurt again?
Mm,
And that's to be friends with the people that hurt you.
right. So people pleasing.
Well, I mean, there's definitely people pleasing, but I decided, well, if I hang out with, um, with people that, you know, people are scared of, then hey, that's extra protection. So, I
Ah,
started mixing with people that, yeah, I knew I'd be safe with.
so these people, we don't have to go into detail here,
Mm.
kind of, sorry, not trying to be judgmental at the same time, but sort of the wrong crowd almost, like the crowd that would get up to a fair bit of mischief per se.
Oh
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and that's when I first discovered recreational drugs and
yep.
um, God, it was great. I remember the first time I ever did it, and I went, oh, all my problems are solved.
Here's the solution, right?
Here's the solution, and yeah, all the things, and I wasn't aware of it at the time, but all the
Mm,
things that I'd went through during that 8 months, and pretty well losing who I was.
mm,
It didn't matter anymore.
mm,
Um, so yeah, short term it was a solution, but then as time went by, it just sort of it got harder and harder, and all of a sudden that wasn't giving me what it used to. It was giving me freedom.
yep.
It was giving me confidence. It was giving me courage. Yeah, it was giving me this feeling that actually life is pretty good.
Connection as well in a kind of a strange way, like a feeling of feeling connected, at least to.
Well, great you brought that up because I thought that it was only when I was doing those substances that I was able to be philosophical, that I
Ah,
could
yeah.
actually, that I could be sensitive and I could be emotional and I
Mm.
could get away with it because I could just say, oh, I'm high, guys. But what I
Oh, so it's
realized
almost
was
your excuse to be able to do that
to be
within the
myself.
crew that you were. Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. With when I was having these substances, I was safe to be me.
Mm,
Yeah, in a weird way.
mm,
Um, and I could pour my heart out to people and go back to that vulnerable, sensitive almost and be okay with that. But I thought I didn't have access to that unless I was taking something.
mm,
Yeah, yeah. But what I realized was I just hadn't found my people yet pretty well. And then
mm.
one day it clicked. I just went, wow, I could actually completely change what I'm doing here. And that's when I thought, what do I love? And I think I started looking at the ikigai. So have you heard of the
No,
ikigai?
no, what is it?
Oh, so it's like a Japanese philosophy. So it's
Mm,
about finding something that brings you joy is the first one.
mm,
Something that you like to teach people,
mm,
and something that brings in money, obviously, so that you can actually live. So then I started to ask myself these questions, and I thought, I actually love communicating with them.
mhm.
And I was truly being myself when I was out uh, and really making those connections. But I assumed that I had to take something. to achieve that.
Mm.
And then I realized, well, maybe I don't need to do that anymore, and there's a way around that. So it wasn't until I decided to change my career that things really started to change. And then I realized that, yeah, I need to do something completely different, and I need to actually change where I live. So I pretty
Mm.
well just completely turned my life upside down.
Yep.
So I changed my career. I changed where I lived. I wasn't
Hmm.
hanging around with people that were into that anymore. And yeah, I really just did a complete 360 pretty well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then that change moved into counseling. Did that happen from that point? Did you start to do studies, or what
Well,
happened then?
yeah, well, I was into fitness as well. I've always
Okay.
been into like mind and body. So even like if I wasn't sort of building, and that's the funny thing, if I wasn't building, I was at home like YouTubing, philosophical videos or communication styles, or I
Mm.
was always fascinated with human behavior.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I never went home and like looked at this new cool building show or this cool
Well,
YouTube
that
like
tells a story, doesn't it?
how to build this, or like
Yeah.
as soon as I just hated, I'd open my trailer and I'd just get this like even on the way to work just this real empty sort of feeling like, oh, here
Mm.
we go again, like, but I couldn't see a way out.
Yep.
I could not see. Yeah, so I first got in because I loved fitness and mental health. So it just occurred to me, I'm like, well, I know from my own experience, like all that's connected. Why don't I just put them together? So
So why don't you just what? Sorry.
put them together.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did my PT course and I did my counselling diploma at the same time,
Hmm.
and yeah, started working in a gym, but almost unintentionally counselling at the same time because you got clients coming in and they've had a pretty rough day at work and they want to talk to someone and you're right next to them, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was already doing it.
So it's
And
like your eyes it's like almost just illuminating who you already were at that point. Yeah.
well, that's the funny thing. Like I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
in this, and I hate calling it a job. Like I just I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm just being me, and
Yeah.
and I feel like weird. Like some days, well, most days, I'm doing my job, and I almost feel guilty that I get paid to be in this role. And
Mm.
there's not one day where I've ever gone on the way to work, oh, I don't want to be doing this. But with building, it was like, yeah, non-stop. It was just every day was the same. And if it was raining, I'd have to put on muddy boots and walk through the mud on the building site. I already hate what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's crazy to think. And now when I drive past building sites and I see people walking in the mud, I go, oh my God, thank God I'm not there anymore.
Mm.
But hey, some people love that. Some people love the mud and they love, being a tradie, and that's great. It's about finding, what gives you energy and what drives you.
Yep.
But for me, it wasn't building. um,
Clearly.
and I always wondered, I'm like, why do all these tradies up to me on the building site talking about their latest divorce or, all the stuff they're going through? And I always like, yeah, if I wanted to go to, I was, um, if I was looking forward to going to work, it's because I was interested to see how Bill went on the weekend, having that conversation with his partner.
Yep.
It was not about, oh, I can't wait to throw in that game, or no, it was about the connection and the relationships that I was building. So, yeah, that's it. Just occurred to me that, oh my God, it was there the whole time. I just didn't even know. It's like I had this blindfold on, and the universe was showing me, but I wasn't at that frequency, I call it, to be able to see what was going on around me. I wasn't there yet. And I feel like the substances were creating like a wall. So I couldn't really reach into my heart and access that part of me yet. So it had to take a real conscious change to happen for me to actually see that.
Yeah. And often it's as a result at some point through pain or some sort of emotional, mental, maybe even physical pain that you make there's that not necessarily catapult moment, but you have that moment. I go, oh my God, this is just not the way forward. I'm in a place I don't want to be.
Yeah.
To get to that place where you go, I've got, I want to change. And it sounds like it just almost just opened up, said, I don't have to do this
Yeah.
to get, to get what I want. Yeah. Great. And just Matt, just to clarify for the viewers, what is your role at Thrive? I mean, obviously that's a great, amazing story, how it all kind of segues into now, but what do you do
Yeah.
now? I mean, counseling clearly, but what does that look like? What sort of clients do you work with? All those sorts of things.
Yeah. I work with all ages. So my youngest client's 5, and
Yep.
I think I've got a client who might be in their 80s as well. So I've got clients all the way through. I see couples as well.
Hmm.
So I do the Gottman method, which is all evidence-based. It's an evidence-based model from John and Julie Gottman,
Hmm.
who did research over years,
Yep.
over 3,300 couples. And yeah, it comes with like an assessment that the couples do at the start. And then, yeah, we do activities based on, what the results are, in terms of like their friendship, connection, possibly values, and creating shared meaning and
Yep.
those kinds of things. And yeah, I know I'm really drawn to couples therapy in particular. It's just a really beautiful thing seeing two people that've fallen in love, and it's almost like they're a bit sort of lost, and getting them back coming in and connecting. And it's just like it's so beautiful to see. And you can see the body language, like when they come in, they might have their bodies like away from each other. And then the next session, they might be slightly turned in again. And then by the end, they're like, coming close. So that is just beautiful to see and to witness that.
Yep.
So that's something, but I didn't even think about couples. Like when I joined Thrive and Jacinta sent me a message, like, what do you think about doing couples? I'm like, no, like, but yeah, look, my external supervisor, well, he's actually my own psychologist throughout the years. Like he's the one who sort of got me back on the path and doing what I really sort of, well, he helped me. He sort of guided me. He didn't, you know,
Sure.
he's not the one who sort of put me there, but he's like my role model, and
Hmm.
he was doing the Gottman method and he was doing cut. Then I'm like, oh my God, maybe I should try it because I really look up to him, and maybe I'll actually really enjoy it because we had very similar sort of values. And I'm still seeing him,
Okay.
once every sort of few months, just as a bit of a up and talk about resources. And so I'm
Sure.
going to contact with him.
You're going to keep in contact?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, he's been really pivotal
Mm.
to me actually making these changes. So yeah, look, I've learnt all the skills off him. So all the approaches that I sort of show my clients. Yeah, he's the one that's used those approaches on me, and that's what's really helped me where I am today. So
Yep.
things like you were saying before, ACT, a bit of CBT, internal family systems, and EMDR therapy as well. So I'm going to be doing my EMDR training at the start of next year. So that's for trauma as well.
Okay.
So it's eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So you talk about the event and you follow the finger and bring it up, and yeah, letting that part know that it's in the present now, that it's safe, and it's all evidence based as well. So I make sure all these approaches are actually evidence based, because if they don't have validity, and if I haven't experienced them myself, then I don't feel comfortable ethically to share those approaches.
So good, Matt. Great to talk to you. Great to hear your story.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks
No
for all
worries.
your questions, and yeah, hopefully, the audience, the listeners, get to know us a little bit more after these two introductory podcasts, and yeah, look forward to many more, and I can't wait to see where this goes, Dale. Really
Yeah, and
excited.
it's just so good to see the patterns and similarities um, in your story, which is unique. But I could really relate to pretty much everything from, the transfer from Alice Springs down to country, although mine I think was Brisbane down to Melbourne.
Mm.
Dad's approval, doing the job that Dad approves of, or you think he'll
Yeah,
approve of.
yeah.
Getting thrown into the wolves and putting on the armor and, into the addiction. Well, for me, the addiction side of things. Um, and then, reaching a point in time where that just didn't work anymore and
Mm.
finding another solution, which led you
Mm.
to the path of counseling as it did for me. So there you go.
Yeah, very relatable.
Indeed. All right, my friend. Thank you.
If you or someone that you know needs immediate support, please see on the screen a list of hotlines you can call. And to book in with a clinician at Thrive, you can phone the reception or book online. And remember, you're never alone.